What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Back after a little flu break. There's 6 of us over there working at HawgSports. I think it knocked out 4 of us. So it's been a bit of a challenge. The voice isn't quite there yet. We'll see how it goes today. But we've got a lot of guests to help us out. Connor Goodson is going to join us, talk a little bit about Razorback basketball, Arkansas's win over LSU. You can call it a must-win, kind of a have-to-win game, and a big one, obviously, coming up this weekend at 11 o'clock against Texas A&M. And we're going to be joined by Kevin Bohannon for the first time. Kevin Bohannon is our baseball insider. He's going to talk about the series coming up and some other things, his predictions for the season. And we'll talk about all that, maybe get to your questions as well. All that more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. So many ways to watch and listen to the show. We're on Instagram Live. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter, X. We're on X. We're just about anywhere you can think of to find your favorite podcasts. We are there on Apple Podcasts. Also, give us that 5-star review. And, Hawg Sports is 30% off right now. 30% off for the number one independent source in Arkansas sports and recruiting at HawgSports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. That's built at just $75.18 for the entire year. As you can tell, the voice isn't quite where it needs to be yet. I got the flu not Thursday, the Thursday before. That's when I started feeling sick, that overnight between Thursday and Friday. And I would say my lungs right now are about 92% still. Like, I still got phlegm and stuff. Still got a little bit of a hoarseness in the voice from coughing still. Did not get a vaccine this year. I've probably gotten a vaccine for probably like 10 or 12 years in a row, and for some reason just didn't do it. My wife and daughter did. They had it. It was gone in no time. So probably the last time I'll be doing that. Learned my lesson on that one. So I want to talk a little bit about the spring football coming up first. We're going to have Kevin Bohannon next here in about 5 minutes or so. And then we'll have Connor Goodson after that. Spring football is supposed to start somewhere around the 10th of March. Based on a report from Matt Jones, they'll have 6 practices, and then they'll go on spring break, and then they'll have the remaining practices after that. And it looks like April 19th for the red-white game, which is something that I'd projected. What he had announced was a little bit different than what I just projected based on what we'd seen from the last couple of years. I think I had 5 practices, then spring break, but still on April 19th. They'll usually go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for practices, with a scrimmage on Saturday, 2 scrimmages, then the red-white game on the last 3 Saturdays. But usually a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule. They did last year do some a little bit different the first few practices. I think they had like a Sunday practice, maybe a Friday practice in there. So could be different the first part, but that's pretty much what to expect. And I'd also expect them to do morning practices again, which Sam Pittman seemed to like last year in the spring because he replicated that again in fall camp. So I would expect them to try to do that again. We haven't spoken to Sam Pittman in forever because they didn't have a National Signing Day press conference. So, I mean, it'll be, I would assume, a few more weeks before we even have a chance to talk to Sam Pittman. So too big of a gap, in my opinion, but that's probably just how it's going to work out. Things are in the works right now to hire a GM. One of the misconceptions that's going around right now is that Sam Pittman's going to hire the GM, but it'll be Hunter Yurachek that's making that hire. Things are in motion there. They're also looking for a new executive director at Arkansas Edge, the NIL Collective, which would be their 3rd in less than 3 years now. Kyle May is moving on to pursue a different opportunity. So some opportunities out there. Hey, if you've got the right kind of background, maybe you should apply. Keith Grayson wants to be the GM, I think. That might be a better paying job, the GM job. I think Texas A&M's GM's getting like $800,000 a year or something ridiculous. One of the big questions that I was looking at was, I mean, it's not ridiculous if you can produce wins, I guess. One of the big questions I was looking at is the wide receiver group. We've talked about this bunch a lot. There are several different new faces. I mean, like, you consider, like, they had 7 of their top pass catchers exit the program after the season. 7. And some of them were transfer portal, some of them just graduation, like Andrew Armstrong, Isaac Tesla. Others left, like Rashad Benyon and Luke has. Some of those guys left, so it was kind of a mix. But that's a tremendous amount of production to replace. You have Jordan Anthony, who didn't play in the bowl game, as your leading returning receiver, who had 8 catches last year for like 100 yards and a touchdown. The guys who are back: Jordan Anthony, Bryce Stevens, Bryce's production the last couple of years has declined. I guess it peaked in 2021. 2022. Shamar Easter, who's a converted tight end, who probably needs to move back to tight end because they got so many wide receivers. C.J. Brown, Cross Johnson, and Zach Taylor. It's time for all those guys to step up, because if they don't, it's time for them to leave. Even if you're just a second-year player, you've got to show something. They would not have brought in 9 new wide receivers, 5 transfers, 4 high school players. They wouldn't have brought in that many guys if they felt real good about the guys that are coming back. Now, I do think they feel good about C.J. Brown. I'm not sure. Maybe Jordan Anthony in certain roles. I'm not sure really about anybody else. That's pretty wild to think about when consider how much they have to replace. Now, I know people are freaking out a little bit about it, but out of this group of guys that have come in, somebody's going to catch 50 passes. A couple other guys going to catch 30. Maybe a few other guys going to catch 30 passes. Somebody has to catch these passes. It's not like Taylor Green's going to go out there and throw for 1,000 yards on the season. He's still going to throw for 3,000, plus yards. Ideally, the guy that catches 50 plus is another number 2, Courtney Crutchfield, replacing Andrew Armstrong. 6'2", 180, number 43 overall prospect in the country in the class of 2024. Now, I think it's interesting that they moved him down to an 88 overall 3-star in the transfer portal after being number 43 overall. I don't know that, like him not playing over Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, Mookie Cooper, guys that had 192 catches, 173 catches, and 91 career catches. I don't know that it's fair to say, like, well, he didn't play over them, so he's obviously not a top 100 type prospect. So I look for Courtney Crutchfield to possibly be that guy. Omega Blake is really intriguing to me. He's the only guy in the country that had, let's see, I broke this down. So he averaged 24.8 yards per catch, okay? He was the only guy among the top 20 nationally in touchdown receptions who averaged more than 19 yards a catch. Pretty impressive, even at Charlotte. And he did some good things as a sophomore at South Carolina before that. Cam Shanks, Raylan Sharp, 2 guys that have caught a lot of passes, smaller wide receivers. The fact that they brought in Ismail Cisse, I think, is further evidence that they don't feel great about the guys that they have returning right now. 26 catches for 241 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Most of those catches, 19 of them came in the first 3 games of the season. So it's not like this is a guy that's like super productive, like he's a must-have type of guy. To me, it's like we need another guy out there that we feel good about. So some high school options too. I don't know if we're expecting any of the high school options to come in and make a contribution, but 2 of them will be here. Maybe a Jace Brown, maybe Antonio Jordan. Maybe Antonio Jordan might be a tight end, 6'6", 230. Okay, I want to go over to Kevin Bohannon now. For those of you who don't know about Kevin, he's been on 103.7 The Buzz. He's been doing various things covering Razorback baseball for a number of years, has a coaching background, and is our new baseball insider. Let's bring Kevin on here. What's up, Kevin?
What's going on, Trey?
Not much, man. Good to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
Tell everybody out there where they can follow you.
All right. So on Twitter, you can go to Cabo Baseball Guru. I also write for the Democrat Gazette during the spring, doing some high school baseball. Going to expand that coverage. And, of course, HawgSports.com, revamping, redoing our baseball coverage this year, in-game analysis, content, articles. You'll have our Washington State primer out here shortly. So, head on over to HawgSports.com. We're going to have a lot of good baseball stuff this year.
Tell us a little bit about your background, Kevin. How'd you get into this?
Yeah, so growing up, always a big baseball fan. That started in 1987. I got to see Nolan Ryan pitch for the Houston Astros against Mike Schmidt. And that's when I really kind of fell in love with everything. Born and raised here in Central Arkansas. I got to play high school and college baseball, and then went to college and played football and baseball at Rhodes College over in Memphis. Ended up graduating from UALR. Got into coaching around 2011, so I was a little late adapter to that. But my dad and grandfather each had 39 years as a coach administrator, so I thought I'd take that family line and do that for a few years. Then got back into the business world, but still stayed into high school baseball. And I was umpiring. I got to crew chief for state tournaments, but I stayed in contact, and I had started coaching the prospects showcase baseball during the summer. Coached some great baseball players: Caden Wallace, Jackson Wiggins, Ethan Bates. We've got 9 guys from the 2020 class that are playing professional baseball right now, and I started with those guys when they were 13 years old. So that job right there, coaching the prospects, got me where I am today, because it got me in touch with Randy Rainwater. I approached Randy in 2018 and said, "Hey, nobody's covering high school baseball in the state. I got a couple of guys that would be great." Randy said, "I trust you." And that's where it started. So started doing a segment a week, and then got into, the relationships that I built through Showcase, allowed me to cover the Razorbacks, and just doing it on a podcast for the Hog Talk podcast, and then picked up by a couple other outlets just as their source. And I really wanted to do the journalism side of everything. So it's been a lot of on the job training with a lot of great guys like yourself, Danny, Connor. So that's what got me where I am today. And I'm excited about taking our coverage at HawgSports.com to a new level, to be the go-to source for Razorback baseball and college baseball recruiting as a whole in the state.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you on, Kevin. You can follow Kevin also at KBO, that's KBO, Baseball Guru on X. And, of course, read all of his content at HawgSports.com, HAWG Sports. We'll have Kevin on. I wanted him to do that introduction because we're going to have him on a lot more, obviously, baseball season getting going. There's a 4-game series kicking things off Friday, February 14th, first pitch at noon. Hoping to get all 4 of these games in. What can you tell us a little bit about this Washington State team and what to expect out of the Razorbacks as well, Kevin?
Yeah, so this Coach Nathan Choate, this is his second year as the skipper for Washington State. The Cougars, of course, were left out in the cold when the Pac-12 kind of disintegrated and everybody went to their respective conference, whether it be the Big Ten or the Big 12. Washington State is an affiliate member of the Mountain West Conference this year. They've got 34-man roster, 24 players are new. And Coach Van Horn, when he met with the media the other day, they don't have a lot of scouting reports on these guys. I think out of their lineup, outside of Max Hartman, who is the lone returning starter in the outfield, who's all Mountain West preseason selection, they only had guys with 3 at-bats. That was it. So their starting rotation, as of right now, you've got 2 guys that came from the JUCO ranks. They were JUCO All-Americans at their respective school. Griffin Smith will start the first game. He was an 11-0, 1.99 ERA, 113 strikeouts. He was at Rock Valley Community College. He's going to start opposite Gabe Gackle. Game 2, of course, the Razorbacks will start Zach Root. Nick Lewis was a redshirt freshman last year, so he doesn't have any D1 innings right now. Game 3, they're going to start Luke Myers. He was at Central Arizona Junior College last year, 7-4 record, 2.20 ERA, right-handed pitcher. So Game 4 is going to be to be announced. Coach Choate has said when he met with a couple of media guys over in Pullman, Washington, that they're going to do a lot of trial and error this weekend. They've only got 1 returning starter, like I said, in Max Hartman. He's a good one. He hit 286 last year, 3 home runs. Had 17 multi-hit games, 41 RBIs. But they're going to be doing a lot of plug and play, maybe do a lot of few different lineups over the weekend. If, like you said, if we get those 4 games in, we're going to do a doubleheader on Friday, as you mentioned, starting at noon. The second game will be 30, 45 minutes after the conclusion of the first. They're going to go Saturday at 2, and then they're going to skip till Monday at 2 o'clock. So Sunday, with the weather in Fayetteville scheduled or forecast to be 28 degrees, it's going to be a cold weekend, but hopefully they get at least 3 out of the 4 in.
Yeah, hope so. That's usually kind of the way it seems to go on that opening series, like hoping to get 3 of the 4. It's calling for possible rain on Saturday too, so that could throw a wrench into it. But Definitely won't want to play in 28-degree weather. You broke down this season, Kevin, how you think things are playing out. You got pretty high expectations for the year.
I do, and you can kind of see the media, the national media, their consensus. The Razorbacks are top 5 consensus. Everybody else, they were number 4 and number 5. And a lot of that had to do with the return of Gabe Gackle, Gage Wood, Will McIntyre, Christian Fouch. The pitching staff was one of the top ERA and strikeout units in the nation last year. Now, they did lose Hagen Smith, but the coaching staff replaced him in the aggregate. And I've made this mention before. That's a Moneyball term that Billy Bean used to use. When he was replacing Jason Giambi, they replaced him in the aggregate. So they got Zach Root from East Carolina and Landon Cheese from Ohio State. Their two numbers together equal Hagen Smith from last year, believe it or not. So they're hoping that those two guys can fill that void left by All-American Hagen Smith, who's now with the White Sox. You get 4 games this weekend, so you got 4 starting pitchers. Those 4 starting pitchers in Gackle, Root, Wood, and Cheese have been the top 4 guys all fall and all spring. Coach Van Horn and Coach Hobbs have a lot of confidence in these guys. Moving forward, I think Cheese moves to a long reliever role, or he can close games. As a freshman, he was able to close games. So the media thinks with this pitching staff, the depth in a lot of the returning guys, that's why they have them in the top 5. The question will be, obviously, can this offense produce at a high level? Last year, the offense struggled mightily. If they didn't hit a home run, they did not score. The goal for Nate Thompson recruiting in the portal in the offseason was to get more athletic. They've done that. Charles Daviland from Florida Gulf Coast, Rocco Pepe from Fresno State at first base, Justin Thomas, he's a JUCO transfer, but he's a Georgia bounce back. Put those guys with Vahiva, Aloy, Ryder Helfrich, and then Brent Iredale from New Mexico Junior College, and you got an athletic lineup. There's just a big question mark for me right now is how quick can these guys gel and how quickly they can produce. Nolan Sousa's had a good fall and then preseason so far. So if they can gel early on and show that they can score runs, not just by hitting the home run, they're worthy of that top 5 ranking.
A guy I was curious about was Kendall Diggs. I mean, he was obviously had a really good sophomore year, and then his numbers dipped pretty much across the board last year. Had some injuries and stuff. What are we expecting out of him this year?
Yeah, his batting average dipped 150 points last year after that torn labrum. He got to work out his lower half a little bit more, and he met with the media on Wednesday, and you could kind of tell that he's a little bit more carefree. He has a lot more tools around him this year. He was really kind of the sole producer last year that everybody was looking to produce outside of Aloy, and a lot of that pressure came on him. So maybe he was overswinging at times and putting too much pressure on himself. The ability for him to play more carefree works in his favor. I think he will start as a DH this weekend. I don't think he's quite 100% ready to go out in the outfield and run around. Plus, they've brought in 5 new outfielders. Logan Maxwell will likely get the start in right field, transferred from TCU. He's had a hamstring issue problem, but as Coach Van Horn said, he's been dealing with that throughout his whole collegiate career. But Maxwell hit .331 last year as an honorable mention All Big 12 award. So I like the position that Diggs is in right now. Put him in the 5 or 6 hole. He doesn't need to hit 3 or 4 in this lineup and take a lot of pressure off of him, which allows him to play more carefree. And I think he gets back to a lot of the numbers where he was as a sophomore. I think he can hit 280, 290, hit 12 home runs, 40 RBIs, and that's all they need him to do.
Last question, we'll get you out with this, Kevin. Who on this roster is going to really maybe surprise us? I know there's a lot of names that people have been talking about, a lot of new names and stuff, but is there anybody that you see as somebody that maybe isn't getting talked about enough who, could really do something this year?
I think the guy that will surprise people more just because based of his body of work the last 2 years, and that's Gage Wood. And it's because his stuff has gotten better. He was the leading strikeout pitcher in the Cape last year when he left. And that's the Premier Summer League. His stuff's gotten better. He was 96, 98 the other day through his first 3 innings. And the starting lineup, they were hitting pretty good, but at this point, that doesn't bother the coaching staff that much. That's going to happen after these hitters keep seeing the same pitcher over and over and over again. So I think he has the potential to go out this year and put up all SEC type numbers just based on his stuff. He moved from number 45 to number 14. That's a lot. When he was given number 45 after Kevin Kopps left, that's a that's a pretty hefty tag weight to bear right there. But Coach Van Horn gave him as a freshman. He was a closer as a freshman, worked out of the bullpen, got a couple of starts last year. He made the key start last season when Arkansas clinched the SEC West down at Texas A&M. So I think Gage Wood is the guy that will surprise a lot of people with his longevity, his competitiveness. I think he'll go out and put up some really good numbers this year on the mound.
Anything else you want to add before we catch you loose?
Man, just enjoy, get out. I know the the attendance at basketball games hasn't been that great this year, but get out to Ball Walker Stadium this year. Just make sure you follow us on HawgSports.com. We'll have a lot of great content this year. I'm happy to be here. So it's going to be a fun baseball season.
All right, Kevin. Appreciate you, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Trey.
All right, everybody. That's Kevin Bohannon. Again, follow him at KBO Baseball Guru on X and read all his content at HawgSports.com. Again, that's HAWG sports.com. Okay, we're going to go over to Connor Goodson. You guys are more familiar with Connor, obviously. He's been on the show a number of times. He's got a lot to talk about lately after it looked like for a while, Connor, it looked like this was just going to be like, let's get this season over with and get to next year. But basketball team has turned things around and had kind of a have-to-win game against LSU that they pulled off, did what they needed to do.
Yeah, I'm looking at the comments right now. Mark Couch said, first show since we predicted doomsday for basketball. And, I mean, that's that show was complete 180 from kind of the mood right now. If I told you that I expected them to completely turn the ship around and be back on the NCAA tournament bubble, I'd be lying. I thought this team was dead in the water.
Connor, I had said in one of my group threads with my friends that I was worried that Big Z stood for Big Zero.
It did for a while. There was a stretch he didn't play more than 15 minutes in a game, and like he was posting single-digit outings where he was giving you nothing at either end of the floor, and then all of a sudden, I think it was the Missouri game, or it may have been the Georgia game. I think it was the Missouri game though, where he goes out and he logs 30 minutes. And it's kind of like then when you could start to see things start to click for this team. And that's when he really started to emerge. Cal started to trust him a little bit, give him some more freedom at the offensive end, which they needed it with Boogie Fland out. They needed some guy that can really facilitate the offense and be that weapon when DJ Wagner or John L. Davis don't have the ball in their hands. And that's really been the emergence of Big Z. I felt like, I've written about this twice now because he's had two just outstanding outings lately. Two really career defining performance for him back to back. He's the first 7-footer in Arkansas history to ever record back-to-back 20-point games. So, and he also became like the first Arkansas player to have 30 3-pointers made and 40 blocks in the same season, which, I mean, is just incredible that through the history of Arkansas, as storied of a program as it is, it hasn't had a player that versatile to do that kind of thing. And it's no surprise that their turnaround has kind of coincided with the rise of Big Z. And he's going to continue to be an important piece going forward. But, two guys who I think that we have written out earlier in the year, and that fans are still riding pretty hard right now. Jonas Adu and Carter Knox. To the fan base's credit, Carter Knox and Jonas Adu have looked terrible at times. I mean, they just look like they don't know what they're doing. Carter Knox consistently gets lost at the defensive end in rotations. Jonas Adu looks like a shell of himself. He looks like he's 40 years old trying to move up and down the court sometimes. And both of those dudes last night came out and they worked their asses off at the defensive end and really made things easier for guys like Big Z, for guys like John L. Davis to get in and cause some chaos and create steals, create turnovers. So props to those guys for really stepping up. Jonas Adu especially, I thought, not really the box score where it's going to jump out at you, But I thought, this was one of his performances where he earned Cal's trust a little bit with just the effort and the defensive intensity that down the stretch.
Yeah, I still don't think he's 100% healthy, even though in this game they said
I don't think he's going to get. I don't think he's going to get there at this point in the season. It's a little late for that. But hey, if he can give you what he gave you last night, come in like Cal. You could tell Cal is trying. He wants to trust Adu. Like I think he pulled Big Z out with like 4 minutes to go there in an important stretch where LSU could still go on a final run. He puts Adu in there. Adu blocks a shot and kind of helps ignite that final little run to push Arkansas over the top and win by 12. And so that kind of shows you that Cal is trying to trust him. He's trying to put Adu in positions, but it's up to Adu. It's the onus is on him to kind of step up and live up to what this Arkansas team needs. Last night he did that. Can you get that going down this final stretch of the season? You're going to need it. But it was obviously a positive sign, and like you said, a must win. It doesn't do much for you metrics wise on your resume. Like you're not going to look at this. Oh, that LSU win's important. You're not going to say that. Yeah. But if you lost it, it's super detrimental if you'd have lost that game. So props to them for taking care of a business. And now you get to play with house money at Texas A&M and Auburn. So, we two very big important games coming up. But I think Arkansas can kind of go in there knowing that none of these metrics, none of these projections have them projected to win. Like it's not like, oh, you need this for your resume. Because I think that they could still lose these two games and be fine if they take care of business and the chalk wins out the rest of the way. I think they'll still be fine. But you go into Reed Arena, a place where I believe the Hogs went in there and won last year and kind of ended that curse of like they never play well there. You go in there, you pick off a Texas A&M team, you go and you knock off a potentially number 1 Auburn next week at Auburn. That opens a lot of doors for you when it comes to seeding and puts you. I mean, it just makes the path a lot easier. It takes a lot of pressure off of what you're going to have to do in the NCAA tournament in Nashville a few weeks from now. So it could open a lot of doors, but at the end of the day, you're playing with house money. You got nothing to lose. It lacks the intensity and the energy around the Kentucky game. You don't have that kind of like, motivation. But if you can find that, just reckless abandon and that just carefreeness and just play loose and whatever happens kind of mentality, I think this Arkansas team could be dangerous, and the Aggies and Tigers really need to watch out.
Yeah, well, I definitely think they're dangerous. That would obviously take them firmly off the bubble if they were to go to Auburn. Yeah. And win that one. That would be huge. Nobody's giving them a whole bunch of chance. But Connor, when we broke down very optimistic before, I think maybe on our last show, but a very optimistic outlook for the remaining schedule, we didn't give them the Kentucky win. We did give them a win at Texas. And we were doing it optimistic, trying to find them 6 more wins to get to that 7-11 mark. I wanted to ask you this because I've been thinking about this. Mm-hmm. Is Zvonimir Visic the best foreign Arkansas basketball player ever? And I'll tell you who would be in the conversation, I think. Most recently would be Moses Kingsley. Moses was Nigerian. And
it was a good one.
Davor Rimac, who was on a national championship team.
He's pretty active on Twitter too, so I don't want to catch the wrath of Dabber. But I think that Big Z has taken that reign. I mean, like I read off a while ago, first player ever to go back, or first 7-footer ever to go back-to-back 20-point games. First Razorback ever to record 30 3-pointers made and 40 blocks in a season. I think you got to give the edge to him right now as the best foreign-born Razorback. And
we're talking about a guy too that might play in the NBA.
Yeah, and I know people are getting a little carried away by this stretch. Big Z he's going to be due for a chance at the NBA. There's no question about that. Will it be after this season? I don't know. He's still got a lot of work to do in the scouts' eyes. He's not really, he's kind of in that late second round, middle second round tier in most of the mock drafts right now. So I still think he's got a lot of work to do, especially defensively. The thing that people need to keep in mind is it's not really stats based. We kind of went through this with Jordan Walsh a couple of years ago. Like his numbers did not look like a guy who was going to, play in the NBA or get drafted just because he was not in that role. But the NBA drafts on potential, and they draft on, does this guy have the frame, and could I envision him helping us 3 or 4 years down the road possibly? And that's what they're doing with these guys, especially in the second round. They're all just taking chances on guys that they think that if they get them in their developmental system, that they can make something out of them. And that's where I think the correlation, because fans will be like, well, why didn't this all conference player get drafted? But then this guy who was averaging like 8 points and 6 rebounds on, whatever percentage, why did he get picked over that guy? It's all about what they envision with potential. And so I think that's what fans need to keep in mind. But performances like this definitely help the case for him to move up those draft boards. If I was a betting man right now, I'd probably lean towards Z coming back for another year, but there's still a lot of ball left to play, and there's still a lot of chances for him to shoot up draft boards. But it's I
want him back.
Do what?
I want him back.
If we're getting this version of Big Z like all year, you just start salivating thinking about the possibilities of what you could do. You could, pair him with another. Obviously, you're going to lose Adu next to him, but you could pair him with an even more, dominant interior presence from the portal. You start thinking that you get, your mind can. I mean, the possibilities are endless when you have this version of Z kind of there as your mainstay. It just opens up your lineups and your rotation, your roster construction that much more.
Yeah. Well, I think Kingsley probably would hold the mantle before. I mean, he was actually preseason SEC basketball player of the year.
Yeah.
As crazy as that is. But I don't think he ever got out of the European leagues.
No, but he was an integral part of that team. Was that the team that got kind of screwed in the second round against UNC? Was he part of that team?
Was that team?
Was that Dusty Hanna's? I know
that
Dusty
Hanna's I don't remember if he was on that team. See, he would be about 30 years old right now. So how old is Hanna's? And
I know he was with Portis for a year. Kingsley was.
He was.
I remember that. And then next year,
he might have been with Portis 2 years.
Okay, it may have been, but I know he was with Portis, and then he kind of went out on his own, and that was when he really kind of excelled and became that factor down low, that shot blocker and defensive menace that really kind of anchored that team after Portis left. But I can't remember exactly.
They say it's good to not know for us because we get comments in the video and people's like correcting us and stuff.
Yeah, Chad, if you could correct us on that.
If you say like 3 + 2 is 6, and just keep going, then like you'll get a ton of comments.
Oh yeah,
you idiots! And it's supposed to be good for the video to get any kind of comments. So I'm sure we'll get some.
I'm used to that on my writing too, man. I'll leave out a word on accident. Trying to get something out quick, and I will hear about it. And so that's good. It's good. We like to keep people on their toes. Is what
people are reading, right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Make sure you hear the whole thing.
So what do you think about this game this weekend? 11 o'clock, Texas A&M. We've liked these 8 o'clock games.
Yeah, a lot of 8 o'clock games. Sorry, I just pulled up. I had Texas A&M's thing pulled up, and then I switched off of it. Texas A&M, they're really. It's Buzz Williams. They're going to be really good defensively. Offense has always kind of been their question through the years under Buzz Williams. They're going to live and die by Wade Taylor. And, it was kind of like when Boogie went down, we kind of thought to ourselves, if Arkansas wants to get this thing turned around, John L. Davis might have to take a Wade Taylor type approach to this where he's just chunking shots up. And we've kind of seen that. Like last night, he had 13 shot attempts. And there's sometimes when you're just like, why are you taking that shot, Nelly? And it's just kind of like he's in that role where
his shot is flattened back out.
Yeah. He's ignored the NOAA system.
He's ignoring the NOAA system. You can tell there's no way he's shooting it at 45 degrees.
Yeah. It's worked out. Last night wasn't his best performance, 11 points on 13 shots, but like you need him to keep that mindset. And that's what Arkansas is going to face this weekend against Wade Taylor if he's good to go. I know he's been battling through injuries throughout the season, but Texas A&M is going to live and die by Wade Taylor at the offensive end. They're a really good rebounding team, especially on the offensive glass, which is where Arkansas struggles. We even saw it last night. It was so frustrating that they were just not finishing out possessions. And it was like you kept wanting them to step on LSU's throat earlier, and it would be like, they force a difficult shot. LSU throws up a three, and you're like, okay, you did what you needed to do. And then Corey Chest or Damian Collins would just show up with the rebound under the basket, and you're like, how the hell did he get there? And what are we doing? And so if Arkansas can limit damage on the offensive glass, you like their chances. But Texas A&M is the best offensive rebounding team in the country. According to KenPom right here, they're got a rebound rate of 42.7%, which leads the country. So Arkansas is they're going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to need Z to grab more than 3 rebounds. They're going to need Adu and Brazil to really step it up and really go to work inside and grind this one out big time if Arkansas is going to have a chance, because they cannot continue to give teams second chance points. There was at one point in the first half last night where Arkansas was leading the offensive rebounding battle, but were losing in second chance points 11-2. And it was just like, you just can't do that. If you do give teams second chances, you got to make them, you got to make it difficult on them, and you can't let them hurt you on it. So Arkansas, limit the damage on the offensive boards, limit second chance opportunities and second chance points. And then obviously, that they're going to have to shoot, 45% or above to really have a chance. I think, there is a slight part of me that thinks that this might be one of those ugly rock fight type games like we saw against Georgia and Oklahoma, where it's just like, if anyone hits a 3 in the final 3 minutes, like that might be the difference in the game. There's a chance that could happen to this, because Buzz Williams loves a scrappy fight in the mud. But I think that the way these two teams have played of late, Arkansas is just going to really have to continue to be really efficient offensively, feed Big Z as he is. The one thing that I've really loved about what Arkansas is doing, and specifically Big Z's performance last night, normally he falls in love with the 3 and he's just hovering around the 3-point line. That's what we saw earlier this season, and Calipari was super frustrated by that. He's like, you can do more, you can be more. He showed that last night. Like, LSU was determined on taking away his perimeter shots and chasing him off the 3-point line, and he was more than willing to go inside. I think he finished with 12 paint points, 4 dunks, and he was showing that he was willing. Like, it wasn't like he was sitting there thinking about it and then like, oh yeah, now I need to roll, or now I need to get to the paint. It was like that was his first thought. If he saw a defender coming out on him, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to roll instead of pop. And I thought that was really kind of another step in his evolution, where he's not like really overthinking it. It's just more instinctually. He knows that he can dominate inside. It's all about positioning with him and will. And we saw that last night, what he could do when he really puts his mind and effort into it at the offensive end. And he can be a versatile weapon. He can hurt you outside and inside just as much. So need to see that continue for Z moving forward, and especially these next 2 games against 2 of the better SEC teams and 2 of the better teams in the country, period.
And Texas A&M, notable, they've won 4 in a row, 6 of their last 7. They have not lost at home since January 11th against a pretty good team in Alabama. All right, Connor.
That Texas loss also to them was just they led by I think like 18 or 20 points in that game, and it took a Tremont Mark last second runner to put them out and lose that game. So they very well could be like 7-0 coming into this game. But yeah, playing really good ball. It's going to be a tough one. But for fans, I caution you to really, if Arkansas goes out and they don't pick up these 2 games, don't freak out, because the resume right now expects them to lose these next 2 games. They still have a lot to play in front of them if they do lose these games. But the way they're playing right now, you feel like this is kind of where a team could go in there, be feeling themselves a lot, and pick one of these 2 teams off maybe, and really open things up for their path forward going to March.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at it too, Connor. After these games, you get obviously Missouri's good, but you get them in Bud Walton. You get Texas in Bud Walton. Texas kind of average, maybe a little below. Columbia, South Carolina.
It's a tough place to play.
A tough place to play, but they're not very good.
They're still winless in SEC.
Speaking of tough places, at Vanderbilt, and then wrap things up with Mississippi State and Bud Walton. I mean, there's a path here. There's definitely a path, even if you drop these next 2 games. But it would be real sweet to win one of those, because you're not just trying – obviously the goal is to get the NCAA tournament, but get the best seed that you can. It's crazy that after a couple of weeks, we're actually talking about that as a real possibility.
Yeah, imagine someone accidentally goes back and they're trying to search up what we think on Arkansas basketball right now, and they accidentally pull up that video compared to this one.
I'm going to delete it.
Completely different vibe and everything. It's crazy. I actually wrote a story earlier this week that I'm going to update, and I'll get a new version of this out once all the metrics and stuff have updated after last night. But it's about Arkansas's path forward to making the NCAA tournament. I give some of my thoughts, and I went kind of full nerd on that with all the different metrics and things that the committee is going to be considering for Arkansas, where some of these expert bracketologists have Arkansas projected. If you want to go check that out, that's over at HawgSports right now. You can go find it on Arkansas's path forward to the NCAA tournament. I'll have more of that type stuff coming up when everyone updates their bracketology and everything. And but yeah, I'll have those articles being updated more frequently if y'all want to check that out and get my thoughts on how things are going on that. So yeah, y'all got to check that out. And I believe a little birdie told me that maybe HawgSports is 30% off. Did I get that right?
30% off. HawgSports.com, number one independent source on Arkansas sports and recruiting. $6.27 a month is what it breaks down. It's billed at just $75.18 for the entire year.
If the wheels do fall off, portal's there. I mean, regardless of what happens.
Video.
Do what?
We'll re-upload the other video.
Yeah, if the wheels fall off, we'll re-upload it, and I'll get my big portal board going early. But don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, we'll have a lot of fun stuff coming up down the road. NCAA tournament coverage, hopefully, and then obviously after that, portal madness. The grind never stops.
Yep. All right, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. See you, Trey.
All right, everybody. That's Connor Goodson. Connor coming off of a big win in our dynasty, by the way, over Ole Miss, breaking his 20-game winning streak. He probably wanted me to talk about that a little bit more. But I wanted to get to some questions because we haven't done that in a while. And we've got some comments coming up. The real Sean B says, "Hey, Trey, I met your cousin Doug out in PCB, small world." I don't know what PCB means, and I don't know who Doug is. I have a cousin named Doug, like a blood cousin. I don't have any cousins in Arkansas. I don't have any cousins in Arkansas. Maybe elaborate, Sean. I don't know who you're talking about. Earthman says NIT for sure. I mean, that's still definitely in the cards. There's a lot left with this schedule. Let's look at it real quick. I mean, we touched on it, but obviously Texas A&M and Auburn, both 2 road games, back-to-back, 11 a.m. on Saturday and 8 p.m. on Wednesday. And then you're back in Bud Walton again at Arena. For 3 of your last 5 games, you've got Missouri and Bud Walton, Texas and Bud Walton, at South Carolina, at Vanderbilt, and then wrapping things up against Mississippi State heading into in Bud Walton Arena, but heading into the SEC basketball tournament at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. Pensacola Beach, maybe. I don't know that I have a cousin named Doug, unless it's a distant cousin. What are you doing in Panama City Beach right now? It's not spring break. Earthman is convinced. He says no tournament for the Hogs. Crazy, our best shooter is a big. Yeah, he's got a smooth stroke, though. I mean, that step back 3 that he had against – who was that? Was that against Alabama from the corner? That was just – I mean, I couldn't believe he hit that shot. And then he airballed one yesterday with the same shot on the other end. Yeah, first show since we predicted doomsday for Arkansas basketball. Connor is also coming back from being sick. I believe he had the flu also. We've all had it. I mean, it's been a rough flu. I've still got, I mean, this isn't the smooth, leathery voice that you're all used to. To put you to sleep. It's got a lot of crackle still. Cody James says, "Don't want to get ahead of myself, but we might actually turn into a good team." I feel like they're starting to. Be real nice to knock off a good team. Like, yes, winning at Rupp was big. You know, Kentucky's what are they, 6-5 or something? I mean, 5-6 maybe. I can't remember, but they, you know, who's the good team that they've beaten this year? Really, Michigan has turned out to be a really good team. They beat them in a neutral site in Madison Square Garden. Michigan's like 11-2 or something in the Big Ten. But yeah, it'd be nice to get another win over a good team like an Auburn or a Texas A&M, Missouri, of course, at home. Texas is kind of in the middle of the pack, but like beat a really good team. That would be nice, especially if you could do it at their place. Cody says, man, if we could get Jonas healthy, we could do some damage finishing up the year. Yeah, like Connor was saying, I don't know if he'll ever be totally healthy. Just in the post game, they were like, yeah, he's healthy as far as, it almost felt like they didn't want to say everything, but he's not the same guy that we saw at Tennessee last year. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think about like Trevin Brazile last year, like how much explosion that he lost, and people were kind of being hard on him about how he was playing. And the year before, this guy's putting up some of the best dunks that we've ever seen from a guy in a Razorback uniform. And last year he's settling for 3-pointers and, just doesn't seem to have the same explosion. Well, his knee wasn't right yet. And now we're seeing obviously a lot better player. Still some inconsistencies that frustrate you, but a lot better player. Okay. Panama City Beach. Yeah. I don't know. Okay. We're going to wrap it up. Appreciate everybody for joining me. This is about all my throat can handle right now. That did not sound good. Whew. That's going to be clipped. All right. That's about all I can handle right now. But I want to thank Connor Goodson for hopping on, and thank Kevin Bohannon, of course, for joining us. And hopefully the throat will be better and we can run maybe an hour-long show and hopefully have some really good things to talk about when we come back to you guys next week. After Arkansas plays Texas A&M on Saturday. And then I don't know like what day, like we've been kind of doing it one day a week. Obviously we're going to pick that back up and do 2 days a week. Just had a lot of things going on, obviously, and being sick, but I don't know if I think maybe we'll go back to Thursdays, but like when spring football gets here, it's going to be a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. So I don't really know how I want to do the show. I'd like to get some consistency, but it's just kind of like, when do we have a pocket? When's a good time? Because I don't want to do it like the day of the game. I like doing more of a recap and then looking ahead to the next game. So that kind of makes Wednesday tricky. All right, everybody. Appreciate you for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we will catch you next time as soon as I find the outro. 3, 2, 1.